unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Depth, a production of Souls and Liberty brought to you in partnership with MyPillow. A new virus is sweeping across America, courtesy of the Biden-Harris open borders policy. This plague, a Venezuelan crime syndicate responsible for much of the murder, sex trafficking, and assaults on police we see infesting the nation today.
It is an infestation. It's taking hold, not just in Colorado or New York. It's up in Michigan, Florida, Texas, you name it. It's spreading. And if people don't wake up and see it for what it is, we're going to be in a lot of trouble in this country.
More on this murderous network in a moment, but first,
the last 3 or 4 years has been a massive surge in crime across the United States, and they covered it up. The institutions, their federal departments covered up the statistics. So this is not a group that's going to face reality and do what is necessary to fix this problem.
All right, 15 days to go, and on top of everything else Americans are having to grapple with owing to the ruinous policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we now have Venezuelan super gang Tren de Aragua, or the Aragua Train, as they're known, gaining a foothold in cities across the U.S. Described as the epitome of evil and MS-13 on steroids, this shadowy criminal enterprise is unlike anything America has seen before. Here to talk about it today is Souls and Liberty contributor Arthur Clareau. I'm your host, Stephen Wynn, joining you today from Kansas City. Arthur, what is Tren de Aragua? Who are they and how did they get here? And what sort of threat do they pose to the people of the United States?
Stephen, Americans have dealt with numerous gangs, a lot of different kinds of crime in the past, but I don't think that anyone in the United States, not the people and definitely not the law enforcement apparatus, is ready to deal or knows how to deal with this problem. I lived in Central America for a while. I'm very familiar with MS-13 and gangs like that, and they are horrible, horrible, satanic, evil gangs. When I was there, they just introduced a new business plan, which was micro-kidnappings. So what that was rather than taking someone from a very wealthy family and holding them for a large ransom, they'd pick up any tourist or any person from a half-decent middle-class family, charge a $500 to $1,000 to $1,500, and try to get the kidnapping over in an afternoon. Of course, if you didn't pay, the consequences were the same. The severity of the kinds of people we're dealing with, I don't think the American mind is capable of comprehending. Tren de Aragua is far worse than MS-13 for many reasons, but they're similar in the way that they are a satanic gang, but a lot more like the cartel than they are like a regular gang. They're much more organized, much more difficult to spot. They don't have tattoos in the same way that MS-13 does, so it's much more difficult to distinguish them from the 300,000 plus Venezuelans who come across the border since Joe Biden threw it open. And the stuff they get into is horrific. It's human trafficking, it's child trafficking, both of which are for the purposes of prostitution. It's the typical drugs and horrific gang killings and just horrifying stuff like what we're seeing out of Aurora, Colorado. They're widespread across the United States right now, definitely on the southern states, but they're moving north. I mean, they're significant in cities like Chicago and New York. This is not being contained in one area of the country. It's spreading rapidly, like you said, like a virus.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really unsettling. They are known for burying their victims alive, and they really, ISIS has nothing on these folks. And so it's the fact that they are now being transplanted here into the United States, into city after city across the country. It's exceptionally worrisome. All right, when we come back, Kamala Harris has blood on her hands. Stay tuned.
The establishment has tried to assassinate President Trump twice, but we can't really be shocked that those who slaughter 1 million unborn babies each year would try to kill one more human being who stands in the way of their diabolical agenda. Trump, like every one of us, including all of us at Souls and Liberty, is a sinner. But like all of us, he is in the fight and fighting for all of us to get one more chance, maybe a last chance, to save the republic. We must hang together, or as Benjamin Franklin said, we shall hang separately. And maybe far sooner than many imagine, because communists take over and always persecute Christians and Catholics in particular. Let us help you fight these forces of evil. Become a monthly supporter today so we can continue giving you the information, the tools of our faith, and the support network you need to go out and save souls and save our nation. Join our merry band of happy warriors and click below to get into the fight. We need you, we need each other. Join the resistance. Become a monthly donor today.
Kamala Harris has served as Biden's so-called border czar for the past 3.5 years. And in that time, she's given us nothing but lies and excuses about the universal failures of their open border policy. Now, part of this policy has given rise to just death on a mass scale here. It's resulted directly in the murder of U.S. citizens, including Jocelyn Nungare, Rachel Morin, and Laken Riley, who are pictured here. Now, many argue that Harris is guilty of facilitating their deaths and others. Arthur, what say you?
Well, this particular gang only entered the United States under the Joe Biden-Kamala Harris open border policy. Before that, they didn't have a significant presence here. There were others, sure, and there are many gang members across the United States, but this particular one it can be laid directly at their feet. And I don't think that the United States is ready for what this means. I don't know if you or many of the listeners have heard of Duterte in the Philippines. He's a very controversial figure for certain reasons, and if you look it up, I'm sure you'll find out. But there's certain areas of the world wherein the crime, the just depraved evil of what is going on is so great that your average laws can't handle it. They just can't deal with it. And this is what is now facing the United States with the introduction of these kinds of gangs. It doesn't take much for people like, first of all, there's no morals here. It's not like the mafia, which had, they did horrible things, but they had a certain code of honor, or they, that sort of thing. This is completely different. And it doesn't take much to, if you consider liberal policies already and how soft on crime they are, how you have police officers picking up attempted murderers and those guys are back out in the streets hours later. Introduce a group of people who have no qualms with going to a judge and threatening their family, or with going to, a DA or a police officer's family, whatever it is. And imagine you are those people and you know that this group is completely capable and has done in the past everything that they're threatening to do to you. It's not like the movies. This is not like, I'll stand strong, I'll fight. That's not how it works. So it's going to take a lot to shut down what has been allowed to grow here. And I'm not sure that liberal America has the stomach for it.
Yeah, I agree. It's very worrisome what is happening right now. When we come back, it's up to us to decide whether we want to clean up our streets or not. Stay with us.
Go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size MyPillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
No matter who wins in November, we have to embrace that we are living in a post-Christendom culture. And the heart of that is a rejection of the gospel. As one item on our agenda to combat this, Souls and Liberty is hosting our first annual retreat at sea. You might be familiar with the annual event we produced for over 10 years at Church Militant. Dr. Jules Gomez, our Rome correspondent, and I are going to be doing the presenting, and the theme is Christians in Exile Triumphing in Adversity, which provides a whole range of discussions to think about. Now, we sail out of Galveston, Texas to the Western Caribbean November 10th to the 17th, yes, right after the election. I think all of us are probably going to need it one way or the other. Please join us for serious discussion, spiritual preparation, and bonding, very important, bonding with fellow Catholics. Registration information is provided below and on our site at soulsandliberty.com/retreat at sea 2024. So sign up, and we hope to see you there.
Election Day is just over 2 weeks away, and one of the major outcomes that will flow from whatever decision America makes on November 5th will be whether or not order will be restored to American cities. Now, break this down for us, Arthur. Just this kind of flows from what you were saying before. What can we expect from a Trump administration versus a Harris administration in terms of response to this crisis?
Well, we can work off of their past behavior, right? Harris' past behavior in California and then in the Senate and then as vice president has been very typical of progressives and left-leaning liberals and their approach to crime. It's just very soft. It's very much a perspective of criminals are that way because of something bad that happened in their life, and they're just really misunderstood victims. And so we're going to treat them like misunderstood victims, completely ignoring, of course, the actual victims and the innocents who are harmed by these people. And Trump, on the other hand, definitely is tougher on this sort of stuff. He has the kind of more old school American approach, maybe a little more of a Teddy Roosevelt approach, where, hey, if you do these horrible crimes, we're going to get you and we're going to get rid of you. How much he's going to be able to do, though, is another question, right? It's not a one-man show. He's not the king. He doesn't get to choose to just, hey, round them all up and execute them. That's not how it works. So we're going to have to see what he's actually able to do and able to accomplish throughout the entire, law enforcement apparatus. I think one interesting thing that is being toyed with is what Governor Abbott did in Texas, which is designate these groups terrorist groups, which then allows a whole new range of laws to be unlocked that can be applied. And that is interesting. Based on the definition of terrorism, I don't know how well that holds up. I don't think there's much of a political aspect to what these people are doing. They're just a gang that just wants to make money. So let's hope it does, I guess, because there needs to be. It's just really difficult. I mean, if you can imagine, if you know anything about law enforcement, the amount of work and time and money it takes to create a case, to arrest someone who's doing horrible things, to prosecute them, to process them. And then depending where you are, I mean, the jail sentence could be something like, 5 to 10 years, and then they're back on the street, having just created a whole new network of recruits in prison. I mean, in Venezuela, where this gang comes from, they took over a prison and they were running their operations out of a prison. And it took 11,000 Venezuelan troops to reclaim that prison from this gang. So what we're dealing with is not, it's not going to be easy by any stretch.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Governor Abbott. I thought, if we were to federalize a terrorist designation, I think that would be a great first step. But the nature of this group, you mentioned the mafia earlier. It's unlike anything we've encountered before. It's basically these. We have scores and scores of members coming into the United States, setting up basically quasi-independent cells. They operate almost as franchises here. There isn't like a direct linear link from bottom to top like there is with the mafia. And so they're much harder to, we don't even know who the top kingpins are at this point, which is just incredible, but they operate with astounding speed. What took MS-13 a decade or more to set up, they've done in just a year's time. And so they're incredibly efficient. They're malleable. They change as they need to, they evolve as they need to evolve. And they're shadowy. As I said, we don't know who the top leaders really are, most of them. And so it's I think I don't know. I think obviously if Harris stays in, it's going to be more of the same. Just sacrificing literally the lives of Americans for political expediency. But if Trump gets in, I think he's going to have to really unleash a scorched earth policy almost to uproot this syndicate, and that will prove to be very difficult, probably very bloody. But the alternative is far worse. I think. Your final thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to take guts. It's going to take being comfortable with some uncomfortable things, and that's something that it's very unfortunate we're even put in that position. That could have been avoided entirely, right? And if you look at Harris just really quickly again, the last 3 or 4 years has been a massive surge in crime across the United States, and they covered it up. The institutions, their federal departments covered up the statistics. So this is not a group that's going to face reality and do what is necessary to fix this problem at all. So yeah, let's hope Trump can go scorched earth on it, but it's going to take a lot of work, and this is why we need to also recognize the importance of closing that border, of having some form of border control. And also, I think that there's just a point now where the United States and the people of the U.S. need to recognize these organized crime gangs for what they are, and realize that there needs to be some new version of criminal justice policy for dealing with those specific types of organizations, because it's not the same as an average just random criminal or anything like that. This is very severe, and you could just put yourself in the position of an officer trying to arrest someone like that, and the things that would come back at them, to recognize all the way up the ladder how difficult it's going to be to deal with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Uncharted waters. And again, thank you, Kamala, for getting us there. All right, Arthur, excellent analysis and discussion as always. Thank you very much for joining us today. And to our viewers, thank you as well for joining us here on In Depth. God bless you.